Is it just me, or do I not like self improvement? And I don't mean self improvement as the way of, bettering yourself, learning about yourself, going to the gym, the usual stuff that people recommend. That's not what I'm kind of mad about, but rather more so the community or the association of self help in like the general kind of internet space and just the consumerism aspect of it. I think people are kind of equating self-help with a standard, and it's really toxic because it doesn't really give the idea of genuine self-help. It just gives the idea of if you're not doing this, then you're basically a loser. Because to me, self-help in my mind is just bettering yourself. You know, whatever it is that you want to do, you just do it. Maybe it's learning a new skill. Maybe it's, working on a negative habit or a negative trait that you have that bugs you out and you try to become better. That to me is positive self help. And I think that's amazing. That's the great thing. It's what we should all do. But there's this side of self help that's like really like toxic. And I'll go later into the video about like what essentially it is, but um there was like this idea of self-help where it's like, again, it's like a standard where it's like, self-help is the idea of like you got to be starting a business, you got to be having a genuine sleep schedule, you got to like do X, Y, and Z, you literally got to be like this or like that, you got to look max, it's like all this dumb shit that doesn't really have anything to do with being a better person. It's just a standard that we put on people. And again, it's really toxic because none of this stuff actually is supposed to help you. It's just telling you what you should do rather than what you want to do. I'm a firm believer that, like, the reason why I feel like a lot of people are so unhappy is that, like, they're not really finding satisfaction in what they do. Because again, like their whole life they're just told what to do, so you kind of follow it and you're never really taught what do you want to do. And it's not the like cringy sense of like, oh man, like people are preventing you from chasing your dreams, like none of that. It's just the idea of like, what is it that genuinely makes you happy? Like what is it that makes you tick? Like what's your dream life look like? What do you actually want to do? And we don't tell that to anybody. Even if you're a young adult or like an adult in general, like when you work in office spaces or whatever, like nobody really asks you for your opinion about what you want to do with your life. You just kind of have this like pre notion that this is what you have to do and you do it. Even people who are like on the Sigma grind set, right? Like they'll do things where it's like, oh man, just start a business, like just lift like a bunch of weights, bro. Like have sex with many women. It's like, but why though? Nobody ever tells you the why. It's just do this, do that. And that causes a huge problem because people don't really have a purpose in life. And so they kind of just drift aimlessly and just do random things that they don't even want to do. And they end up lost, they end up burnt out, and they end up tired. And that's a very dangerous place because if you're all three of those things, you don't have any energy to put into figuring out what you actually want to do with your life. And these self-help things, that's all they say. It's just like, oh, like, start a business, like make money, go work out, go eat healthy. And like, don't get me wrong, these things are helpful advice, and I think, if that's what you want to do, go do it. But at the end of the day, like, you really have to tell people why they should be doing these things. Because if you're just mindlessly telling people to do certain things just because they should, you're not going to really stick with it, and it's not going to improve your life at all. And if you don't follow it to a T, you're just going to feel more and more guilty about yourself. And it's a toxic mindset. And you see this a lot with like the red pill, it's like just genuine, disgusting, toxic self help. Again, I think go again, like I have nothing against going to the gym and getting a good sleep routine. Like that's all good, and having a social connection, that's fine. But when you start saying things like, oh, like if you don't play sports, like you're a loser. If you don't like, if you're not able to like pick up 15 girls in one night, you're a loser. You know, if you're not making millions of dollars, you're a loser. Like, I don't think that's a good message to send to people. And sure, some people want to do that. That's fine. But you know why they want to do it? Because that's their purpose, it's their calling. They've spent some time and they figured out what they wanted to do in this world and they did it, and so they chased it. But for other people, like maybe some people just don't want to make $1 million. Maybe some people just want to live a low, like normal life on a farm or whatever. Maybe some people are really ambitious and successful. You never know. Like people are very different, and when you start lumping self help content with all of this, like it's just so, again, toxic. All of these like self-help things, like it's just like I go on YouTube and like you go on these, like they get recommended to you or whatever, and like every single one is the same thing. It's like like the thumbnail has like four quadrants, and it's like one dude's sleeping, and then he's working out in the next one, and then he's like he looks like a, Instagram model or like a fucking, Giga Chad or whatever. And it's like the same thing with women too. It's like, it's like you see these videos where it's like I fix my life in 24 hours, and it's like the girl on the left is like, she just woke up, she looks kind of tired, she has no makeup on, and the next one she looks like an Instagram model. And it's like we tell people all the time where it's like, oh, if you want to be successful, you want to be happy in life, you have to follow this stuff to a T. And 90% of the time it's like everyone is just the same. None of these videos ever tell you like, hey, maybe you should look inwards and truly figure out what is it that you want to do, right? Like what makes you happy, what makes you tick. A lot of it's just like kind of boring, get money, be swole, eat healthy, that's it. And I think advice like that is pretty toxic, because the idea of self-help is essentially just to like, instead of making people a robot and a monolith, you make them unique individuals and you make them try to understand what they want out of this world. And that truly is great. And like, I understand like motivation, discipline is more important than motivation. I get that. But like, if you don't really have a purpose in doing anything, you're not going to have any discipline to do it, right? Like, if, like for me, like I work out, but like I just do it because like I have a goal in mind. And that's what makes it more fun for me, because I feel like I'm chasing a specific goal because I set that goal for myself. That's what makes it more interesting and more fun. That's what makes it more interesting and that's what makes it more fun. I'm not over here like just blindly going to the gym. And in fact, like half of the times when I wasn't consistent with the gym, I would fall off. And the reason why I would fall off is because like I didn't have a clear goal or purpose as to why I was doing it. I was just listening to some random video about like you should be doing this, so I did it. But the moment I started like genuinely asking myself like, okay, like why am I going to the gym? Well, it's healthy for me, like I feel good, and like I just, do it the way I want to do it. And the gym is like a very weird example, but like it can be with anything, Like I just think self-help content is very toxic nowadays because it's all just telling you stuff that you've already heard before, but it's like very aggressive and very like hustle culture minded, when instead like self-help should be just, and I don't think self-help should also just be like, oh, like take care of yourself, whatever, which I do think is important, but like you can't have either extreme, right? You got to find a bit of a balance. But at the end of the day, like the most important thing is to ask yourself like, what do you want to do, right? Like, maybe your self-care is just watching movies all day and like chilling and doing nothing, and if that's what you want to do, okay, do it. Maybe your self-care is grind set, if that's what you want, okay. But I think it's important to, again, understand what is it that you want to do, because if you never figure that out, you're just going to be mindlessly in this negative loop about like constantly just feeling bad about yourself because you're not living up to the expectations that these videos are setting, and because you don't go to the gym or you're not staying consistent or XYZ or whatever the fuck, like you're just never going to be happy. And I don't think that's true, because there's a lot of people who don't live conventional lives who are pretty happy with themselves. And the reason they're happy is because they took the time to truly understand what makes them happy in this world and what makes them fulfilled, and they went and did it, you know? Self help shouldn't just be like a standard where it's like you have to go from like nobody to like Kardashian like esque in a span of a couple of years. Like I think self help should be truly understanding what you want in this world and figuring that out first before you do anything. Because that truly is what makes you driven, and that helps you accomplish your goals more than any of this other bullshit. So, yeah, I guess that's just my tangent about self help.